Look at these comments, my friend. Look at them. Battle of Mogadishu. I did part 1 from the operations room. I love that channel. Really, I do. And now they come out with the second part. And you guys want me to react to it? Estonian man reacts to Battle of Mogadishu part 2. The Black Hawk down. Let's go, my friends.
Romeo 6-4, this is Uniform 6-4. We've got a lot of vehicles that will be almost impossible to move. Quite a few casualties. Getting to the crash site will be awful tough. Pinned down. Uniform 6-4, this is Romeo 6-4. Danny, I really need you to get to that crash site. This is Uniform 6-4. I have numerous casualties. Vehicles that are halfway running. Gotta get these casualties out of here ASAP. The convoy, lost in the city and sustaining heavy casualties, heads back to the airport, with Sergeant Ebersman and most of Chalk 4 aboard. The quick reaction force of 12 Humvees has tried to fight its way back into the city, but is ambushed en route and also returns to the airport. The Rangers and Delta operators besieged at the first crash site will have to fight on into the night. The Delta and Rangers have become mixed together during their fight to the first crash site.
Yeah, fight on into the night, but as I understand, they don't have their night vision equipment and they don't have food or water because they thought this operation is going to be 2 hours max. So they came lightly. And now they have to fight in the night. They don't have ammunition also, I think.
Ranger Sergeants Williamson and Goodell, Lieutenant Lechner, and Privates Nethery and Erico have been hit en route, and Delta Sergeant Fillmore has been killed with a shot to the head. Throughout the fight to the crash site, the more experienced Delta boys offer reassurance and guidance to the younger, inexperienced Rangers, but those who witness Fillmore's death are shaken. In the eyes of the younger of the Rangers, the Delta Force guys are supermen. They aren't supposed to get killed. We must be in trouble. The rescue teams are frantically trying to...
If one Delta gets killed, that proves their non-invincibility, so they can bleed. Even the God King can bleed, as we heard in the 300 Spartans. The Delta boys are superheroes. They get killed. We're in trouble. That is very demoralizing if they see that.
To remove the wounded and bodies of the remaining crew of downed Super 6-1, but the crash has crumpled the aircraft around them, and it will take many hours to cut them free. They first stabilise semi-conscious left side gunner Dowdy, believing that the convoy will be here shortly to evacuate him. A hail of fire punches holes through the aircraft's thin skin, and medics Mabry and Wilkinson both take hits to the hands. Despite this, and not wanting to move Dowdy from the aircraft under fire through the topside, they dig a tunnel out from under the aircraft, dragging Dowdy to a nearby building. The Rangers...
They dig a tunnel? What? We're digging tunnels now. Under heavy fire they dig a tunnel, and I guess they have their, mobile shovels. They're not very big shovels, but you can use them for digging. Holy hell!
And Delta teams arrive at Marahan Road, a southerly road going uphill away from the crash, and occupy buildings on its eastern side. The fighting is already desperate and close quarters, and the force takes more casualties. Ideally, the teams would move into a coherent perimeter around the crash, but Lieutenant Perino has no choice but to radio Ranger leader Captain Steele to inform him that his chalk is combat ineffective at their current location, with more wounded than can be carried.
With more wounded than could be carried. One of the weirdest things I learned in the army was if you have a squad, let's say 10 men, right? Different countries have different squads. Some have 9, some have 11. Let's say you have 10 men. I have talked about this before. When is your squad not fit for battle? When is your squad rendered useless? When you get over the third of casualties. If 3 men out of the 10 are wounded, your squad is not fit for battle anymore, because 1 wounded is carried by 2 men. 3 men are out, so that leaves 7. And you need 6 out of those 7 to carry the 3, so you have 1 more, and that's the squad leader, maybe. Only 3 wounded and your squad is not fit for battle anymore. This is the crazy statistics of military. Only a little bit of wounded in your group, whatever it is, platoon, squad, corps, and you're not fit for battle anymore. Insane.
Captain Steele's group, further up the street, are also now rendered combat ineffective by the number of wounded.
Yeah.
Steele sends a detachment across the street to improve their defensive perimeter. All teams will have to defend their positions until help arrives. At present, the men on the ground have no idea when that could be. Ranger Corporal Smith is hit on the street and is dragged into a courtyard nearby. Trying to stem Smith's blood loss, Delta Medic Sergeant Smith tries desperately to save the 21-year-old's life. He requests an immediate helicopter evacuation, or the young man won't make it. Marahan Road is still too hot to land a helicopter, so the request is rejected. Lieutenant Perino watches on helplessly as Corporal Smith slips away. As day turns to dusk at 7:30 p.m, the 30-minute mission heads into its 4th hour, and the besieged Rangers and D-Boys are beginning to run short of ammunition, water and medical supplies. The helicopters of the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment have been taking fire all day trying to hold the enemy back. 2 aircraft have been shot down, 2 more have crash-landed at the safe Newport area, and most of the others have taken small arms fire. General Garrison has no choice but to order Black Hawk Super 6-6, piloted by Chief Warrant Officers Wood and Fuller, to conduct a dangerous resupply mission. They approach the area and come to hover 1 block south of the crash site. With a large concentration of SNA militia below, attacking the US troops on the ground, a ferocious hail of fire begins to hit the helicopter. Bullet holes are being punched into the airframe around them as the crewmen frantically push supply packages overboard to the street below. Super 6-6 hovers there for 30 very long seconds. Delta Force Sergeant Jagadi, who had earlier jumped straight off of the returning lost Humvee convoy and straight into the Black Hawk to head back in to help his friends, takes a non-fatal hit to the face.
Non-fatal hit to the face. Oh my god, when is a hit to the face non-fatal? Usually it's fatal. Holy hell.
Tear into the engine and gearbox, but the Black Hawk holds its hover until all of the supplies have been shoved out of the door. Miraculously, Super 6-6 completes its resupply, and Wood and Fuller climb the helicopter out of the danger, nursing it back to the airport.
That is truly miraculous. I mean, they have RPG fire, they have small machine gun fire. These Black Hawks are not bulletproof, right? You can take them down with a AK-47 fire if you shoot the right places. So this is a miracle here.
The supplies are distributed amongst the teams, but Steele's group are too isolated and don't receive any new ammunition.
Oh.
The AH-6 Littlebird attack helicopters now arrive to perform rocket and minigun runs against the Somalis surrounding the US ground forces. The SNA militia are now arriving with heavier truck-mounted machine guns and recoilless rifles. With the isolated US groups not able to form a coherent single perimeter, the risk of friendly fire is high. With the help of infrared strobes thrown by the troops on the ground at the enemy positions, the Littlebirds rotate in to put down frequent fearsome gun runs on the SNA militia.
I remember this part. I remember it in the movie when he threw the grenade up onto the roof. And they were down here and the militia was up there. They were on the same building, kinda. But the helicopters couldn't just attack anyone. They cannot see, even with the heat vision at night, you cannot really say which are your men, which are the enemy's men. So they needed the markings, the infrared grenade, whichever thing it was. And this is what takes the Somalis down right now.
As the night goes on, the Somali fire becomes less consistent, but a constant stream of reinforcements from across the city continues to arrive to fight. Back at headquarters, General Garrison, realising that the QRF Humvees won't be enough to rescue his troops, has called on the UN peacekeeping force of Pakistanis and Malaysians at the Newport area in the south of the city for aid. Not a quick reaction force, and having not been given warning of the raid, it is taking a few hours for the rescue column, armed with 4 M48 tanks and 32 Condor armoured personnel carriers, to mobilise for the rescue mission into the city. 10th Mountain QRF and Task Force Ranger Humvees arrive at the Newport zone at around 10 PM, and so begins a frustrating 90 minutes of planning and organisation.
90 minutes of planning and organisation, right? You don't have any this is a huge mission, of course, a huge rescue mission. A lot can go wrong, you don't know the streets and you only have 90 minutes, so this is basically improvise, adapt, overcome. This is what it is.
The rescue force finally departs the Newport area at 11:23 PM and heads north into the city. American 10th Mountain Division troops, TFR, and Malaysian troops have transferred onto the Malaysian APCs, crewed with Malaysian drivers and gunners. US 10th Mountain troops had initially expressed concern about the competence of their Malaysian counterparts, and that they should just hand over their armoured personnel carriers to the Americans. But given the day's events, voicing this to them may not have been particularly well received, and no such concerns were raised.
Yeah, at this time I wouldn't do this, no. You need cooperation at this time. You cannot say... I mean, it is probably true. The Americans are probably better prepared skill-wise for this, but still, you cannot say things like that at this moment. It would be an ill moment.
The Pakistani tanks lead the column of 70 vehicles to National Street,
70.
where the Malaysian Condors will then spearhead the force into the city.
70 vehicles.
The majority of the convoy will hold between the two crash sites, and elements will move to both sites to carry out the rescues. For the most part, only the officers speak English, so organising the route, radio comms and rules of engagement has taken time. 10th Mountain AH-1 Cobras are now arriving on station to provide a much needed relief for the Little Birds, providing relentless air support to the ground forces. Manoeuvring the armoured vehicles through the thin streets and alleyways isn't a good idea, so the convoy remains on the major roads as it navigates into the city. Their journey in is slowed by heavy fighting. While the APCs have some armour, the Humvees don't. RPGs flash towards them, and a rocket bounces off the hood of one Humvee. One of the transport trucks takes a disabling RPG hit, and the men on board...
These Gondors and Humvees also, they're not RPG proof, so they're really easily disabled right now by this fire. It is hella dangerous. This armor is not defending them at all.
Scramble into nearby vehicles. Malaysian gunners pound nearby buildings with cannon fire to cover their movements. Despite the use of armour, the battle-in is tough and slow for the 2-mile-long convoy. A Malaysian soldier is killed when an RPG hits the lead Condor. 7 more Malaysians and 2 Pakistanis are wounded during the fight into the city. The RPG hits and casualties cause further delay to the convoy. The Rangers and Delta besieged at Crash Site 1 continually radio in to the C2 bird, asking when the convoy will arrive. 40 minutes, they say. Then, 30 minutes later, another 40 minutes. Then 10 minutes, then 20 minutes, then simply soon. The men on the ground have no choice but to laugh at the erratic time estimates. With a healthy dose of eye rolling, any minute now becomes the standard response.
Healthy dose of eye rolling, and in 30 minutes they say 40, 10, 20, and then soon. No amount of time is enough now. They need to be here now. And it gets worse and worse. They go into the city with a relief mission, and the relief mission gets bogged down, and we get 2 vehicles destroyed already and some wounded. They have to make another mission to rescue those fighters.
When the question is asked. The convoy arrives at its central assembly point on National Street and halts amid a continuing firefight. The vehicles of the leading half of the convoy take a right turn up Horwich Road and approach a roadblock just south of the target building that Rangers and Delta Force had landed on 9 hours earlier. Again fearing bombs and mines planted inside the roadblock, the Condors can't simply drive through. 10th Mountain troops dismount from the lead vehicles, some progressing on foot towards the first crash site, others dismantling the roadblock by hand. The convoy and dismounted soldiers fight block by block through the city, in a constant battle with the SNA militia. 23-year-old 10th Mountain Private James Martin is killed as he moves through the city on foot. To the south, rescue forces arrive at Mike Durant's Crash Site 2, but the crew are nowhere to be found. The Somali mob has carried the bodies of the dead crew members away, and Durant himself is under the captivity of Aidid. The ground forces secure sensitive material on board and prepare explosive charges to destroy the helicopter. With the roadblock clear, the convoy rolls eastward with dismounted troops alongside on the street. The C2 bird above calls the next left turn to the...
This is what we would do in Estonia also. We would use the same. We have armored vehicles. We don't have any tanks, but we have buses, and they're pretty much the same as Gondors. So we would walk beside them and in between them and protect them from RPG fire. I would be one of these dudes on foot here with a radio.
Crash site. Ranger Captain Steele hears the approaching vehicles. In the darkness, he shouts, "Rangers, Rangers!" He cautiously peers out into the street. "This is Captain Steele. I'm the Ranger Commander." "Roger, sir. We're from the 10th Mountain Division." 10.5 hours after the first TFR boots landed in downtown Mogadishu, their rescue column has arrived. The Humvees and Condors reinforce the Ranger perimeter and quickly get to work helping to free Walcott's body from the downed chopper. The cockpit is lined with bulletproof Kevlar, so attempts to saw through to cut him free are fruitless. Using chains attached to the front and rear of the aircraft, the Humvees attempt to physically pull the airframe apart.
Ooh.
The efforts take several hours, and sunrise approaches. The Americans and Malaysians continue to hold off the city, with RPG rounds and vehicle-mounted heavy machine guns still battering them from all around. Wounded Sergeant Goodell in one of the Condors loses his cool and screams at the Malaysian drivers to get them out of here. "No, no, we stay," comes the response in broken English, and the rescue force holds the line. An RPG ricochets off another Condor, and again the driver calms and reassures his American counterparts. With the
I have to say that seeing this driver saying that we're going to stay, this before criticism that the Malaysians are maybe not fit for the job is false. They seem to be very fit for the job if they want to stay and save the Americans.
The sun rising, and after countless hours of effort under fire, the crew of Super 6-1 is rescued from the downed Black Hawk. At 5:45 AM, the cover of darkness no longer offers its protective blanket, and the vehicles finally begin to roll south to rejoin the others, holding on National Street and Holwodig Road. There's a big problem, however. With the vehicles carrying dead and wounded on stretchers, there isn't enough room for all of the Rangers and Delta operators. They have no choice but to run the mile south to National Street on foot. The Humvees and Condors don't drive slowly enough for the men on the ground to use them as cover, and they find themselves alone. After now 14 hours of fighting, Captain Steele leads 9 Rangers, all of the Delta Force operators, and the combat search and rescue team through the streets of Mogadishu.
You have fought without water or food or sleep for 14 hours in the heat of this city, and now you have to run a mile with your gear and weapons, and you're fighting, you don't have shelter. This to me seems like a suicide mission.
They put down covering fire as they dart across each intersection. In daylight, there's no point in being slow and cautious. It's a miracle that only one man takes a hit to the shoulder, but continues anyway. A loud explosion sends Ranger Medic Specialist Strauss flying into a nearby bush. Sergeant Watson grabs Private Floyd and asks, "Where the hell is Strauss?" "He blew up, Sergeant." "He blew up? What the hell do you mean he blew up?" "He blew up." At that moment, Strauss picks himself up out of the bush, pointing to the burned hole in his vest where the flashbang grenade that had taken the round had been. They continue together.
You take the round into the flashbang grenade, it explodes, you fly into the bush, and then you carry on. A regular day in Mogadishu.
Finally, the exhausted men spot the column of APCs and Humvees waiting for them. Each now running on nothing but adrenaline, they collapse into the vehicles. The lone dash by the Rangers and D-Boys back to the convoy would become known as the Mogadishu Mile.
Crazy.
With Pakistani tank support and with Pakistani troops dismounting to clear roadblocks, the convoy finally rolls out towards the Pakistani military-held stadium northeast of them at 6:20 AM. In the disastrous Battle of Mogadishu, 1 Malaysian, 1 Pakistani and 19 Americans have been killed or will die in hospital of their wounds, with a further 82 UN troops wounded and 2 helicopters shot down. What should have been a 160-man, 30-minute mission to snatch 2 of ID's top ministers becomes a 15-hour nightmare, requiring a rescue force of 3,000 UN troops with tanks and armoured personnel carriers. Estimates for Somalis killed vary between 315 and 2,000 killed, including many civilians. Despite this, the engagement is an undoubted strategic victory for the underestimated SNA leader Mohammed Farah Aidid. His strategy to shoot down a helicopter and then collapse the city around the rescue effort has been successfully executed, and will eventually result in US withdrawal from Somalia. While the political and military fallout would rage for the next months, there can be no doubt in the bravery shown by both sides in the battle. 2 days later, amid public outcry over the event, President Bill Clinton orders a cessation of all operations against Aidid and appoints a new special envoy to Somalia to broker a peace settlement, announcing US troops would leave the country no later than March 1994. US Secretary of Defense Les Aspin steps down, taking the blame for refusing requests for armoured support to the mission in Somalia. General Garrison also takes full responsibility, effectively ending his military career. After 11 days in captivity, Durant is released, and the bodies of the remaining crew of Super 6-4 returned in poor condition. 5 years later, on the 2nd of August 1996, Mohammed Farah Aidid dies of a heart attack following a gunshot wound in a battle with a rival faction. The tragic civil war in Somalia continues today.
Many people ended their career over this battle. Many people died. USA pulled out of Somalia because of this battle. It is crazy. My friends, this has been a very interesting story, a very interesting battle to cover. So thank you for sharing this journey with me. And if you like my videos, please subscribe to the channel and become a Patreon. I really rely on Patreon support right now. Thank you very much for being you. And as always, until my next video, stay cool, my friends, and bye-bye.